There is a type of silent power that few understand. It's not the kind that shouts, demands, or imposes. It's the power of someone who has learned not to react, who steps back, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Someone who observes, listens, breathes, and chooses not to waste their energy. Maybe you've spent too long trying to keep the peace, being accessible, understanding, and present, even when everything inside you screamed for space. Perhaps you believed love requires constant sacrifice, that being available shows affection, that saying yes keeps bonds alive. But the deep, liberating truth is that the more available you are, the less you're seen. The abundance of your presence makes your essence invisible, and that's where your liberation begins. When you step back, the game changes. Masks fall, and what seemed like love reveals itself as need. What seemed like affection shows itself as control, and what seemed like a bond dissolves into manipulation. Jung called this individuation, the process of returning to your center, ceasing to be a reflection and becoming the source. This requires silence, absence, and the courage to no longer belong to places where your soul suffers just to please others. This video is an invitation, not to distance yourself from the world, but to come closer to yourself. When that happens, everything around you must reorganize because your absence speaks louder than any forced presence. You were taught to always be present, to respond quickly, to please, to say yes, even when you wanted to say no. From childhood, you were conditioned to believe your value lies in how available you are to others. But here's a truth you may not have heard so clearly. Excessive availability is not a virtue. It's a prison. As long as you believe you need to be accessible all the time, emotionally or otherwise, you'll be manipulated, drained, and forgotten when you're no longer useful. Why? Because being always available makes you predictable, and what's predictable becomes a tool. People start using you as an emotional emergency button. They press you when they want attention, relief, or validation, then put you back on the shelf. You don't notice because you're trapped in the illusion that being there for everyone will make someone be there for you. But it doesn't work that way. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted, loved, recognized. That mask keeps you overly available. You say everything's fine when you're drowning. You respond to messages instantly, even when exhausted. You explain, justify, defend, as if you owe the world something. But the truth is, the more you place yourself on other stages, the more you disappear from your own. Being available all the time is a subtle form of self-abandonment, a disguised way of seeking approval, avoiding rejection, or controlling how others see you. But this control has a cost. Your peace, your vital energy, distributed as if it were infinite when it's very limited. Those who want you always available don't want you. They want what you provide: validation, company, distraction, emotional comfort. But when you change, set a boundary, or refuse to react, they get irritated, accuse you, call you strange. It's not because you've changed, it's because you've stopped being useful to them. The cruel truth is that the more available you are, the less value others give you. What's too abundant becomes an emotional rag. No one respects what they don't have to earn. No one values what's always there. So stop and think, who truly deserves your time, attention, presence, or listening? Or better yet, who deserves your absence? But first, we need to understand something essential. Why do we react so much? Why do we give in so easily? What's behind that almost automatic urge to respond, justify, please? The answer lies in what Carl Jung called psychic energy, which we'll explore next. Because your energy is all you have. If you don't learn to protect it, someone will use it against you. If this resonates, hit the subscribe button and join the channel. Thanks for your support. Carl Jung didn't see the human psyche as a machine that reacts to stimuli without consequences. To him, our mind is a system of energy, and every thought, emotion, and action consumes part of that energy. The question is, are you choosing where your energy goes, or are you letting the world decide? Every time you react impulsively, you waste psychic energy. When you defend yourself against unneeded criticism, respond to provocations to prove you're right, engage in pointless arguments, or try to please those who don't value you, You're spending your inner strength on what doesn't nourish you. Jung was clear. What you resist persists. The more you react, the more you trap yourself. People who are emotionally drained aren't weak. They're misdirected. And what happens to someone who's exhausted? They become vulnerable, easy prey. Manipulators, opportunists, and emotionally dependent people sense it. They see you don't guard your energy, that you react to everything, that you're always trying to fix the world, and they take advantage. Jung said a healthy psyche knows how to keep energy within the system. This means saying no without guilt, staying silent without feeling cowardly, observing before acting. True power isn't in reacting, it's in choosing when and how to act. That's only possible when you know yourself well enough to recognize your impulses. How many times have you lost sleep over an unresolved conversation? How many hours have you spent ruminating on what you should have said or why someone mistreated you? That's energy drained without return, keeping ghosts alive that should have died long ago, feeding dynamics that exist only because you keep responding. Psychic energy is like a force field. When well guarded, it creates presence. You walk into a room and command respect without a word. But when mismanaged, you become invisible, reactive, fragile. The world has no mercy for those who give in easily. Start observing your triggers. What makes you react automatically, lose your center? Those are the exact points where your energy leaks, where you need to work. Not to become cold or indifferent, but to be selective, sovereign over yourself. Here's one of Jung's greatest insights. When you conserve your energy, you break the projections others place on you. This disrupts them, because now we're entering the dark territory of silent manipulation. Next, we'll explore how opportunists feed on your energy and why your unavailability completely dismantles their games. Prepare to see those who've always drained you without you realizing it. You think you're in control, that your reactions are conscious choices. But the truth is darker. Most of your emotional responses are programmed, and those who understand this manipulate you easily. Opportunists don't need to raise their voice, threaten, or force situations. They simply press the buttons you've left exposed, and you react, always. Jung called this projection the mechanism where people project onto others what they can't see in themselves. But there's another side few notice. While others project onto you, you become the receptacle for those images. The more emotionally available you are, the more you become a blank canvas for their projections. You know that friend who only seeks you in crisis? That partner who always needs you to save the day? That person who praises you only while you're useful? It's not coincidence. They're not relating to you. They're relating to the idea of you, the role you accept. Why do you accept it? Because you fear disappointing, not being loved, being abandoned. The most effective manipulation doesn't happen in shouting. It happens in the silence of guilt. When you feel you owe something to others, when you believe you must be available, help, understand, even when it destroys you inside, that's where it thrives. The manipulator doesn't need to control you. They just need you to keep reacting the same way. But when you stop reacting, the game ends. When you say no, respond with silence, or step back instead of explaining, their projections crumble. The mask they placed on you falls, and this unsettles them because they no longer know who you are. Worse, they're forced to face themselves, and not everyone is ready for that. Your unavailability is a threat because it forces others to confront their own emptiness. The silence you offer reveals the internal noise they don't want to hear. Then come the attacks, criticism, emotional drama, not because you're wrong, but because you stop being their convenient mirror. Jung said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you step back, stop feeding the cycle, others' shadows emerge, unbearable for those who used you as an escape. Are you ready to handle the discomfort of being misunderstood, rejected, or attacked for protecting yourself? Are you ready to endure the silence after the break? Because it's in that silence that a new kind of power is born. Next, we'll understand why silence can be the psyche's most devastating weapon and how it completely shifts the dynamic between you and the world. The modern world is noisy. Everyone wants to be heard, respond quickly, win pointless debates, prove their point, even at the cost of their peace. But there's a power few know and fewer master. The power of silence, not passive or cowardly silence, but strategic, consciously brutal, lucid silence. The kind that isn't absence but amplified presence. Jung saw silence not as a void, but as fertile ground for inner transformation. When you stop reacting, you start observing, seeing patterns you missed before, emotional repetitions, manipulation games, cycles of self-sabotage. Silence brings lucidity, and lucidity is dangerous to those who live to control you. Have you noticed how some people panic when you don't respond, don't explain, or simply disappear? It's not because they miss you, it's because your silence takes away their control of the narrative. While you speak, you're still in their game. But when you go silent, you change the rules, unsettling anyone who feeds on your reactions. True silence isn't the absence of voice. It's mastery over your energy. It's refusing to be dragged by others' emotions, choosing not to engage in battles that aren't worth it. Jung said individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires this detachment. Only in silence can you hear yourself without the world's interference. But silence has a cost. It will distance you from people who only valued the role you played. It will make you incomprehensible to those who saw you through their projections. You'll seem cold, distant, arrogant, but that's just the reaction of those who never wanted your depth, only your utility. The hard truth is, the more you mature, the more selective you become with your words. You realize every sentence is an energy investment, and not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes silence isn't retreat, it's sovereignty, the language of those who no longer need to prove anything. Silence is uncomfortable because it forces others to face their own thoughts, their own noise. That discomfort reveals more about them than any argument could. You don't need to explain your absence. It explains itself. Those threatened by it show how much they depended on your imbalance to maintain their control. But the most powerful silence isn't the one that disrupts others. It's the one that rebuilds you from within, connecting you to something beyond external approval. In that inner space, free from others' demands, you reclaim your vital energy, reconnect with your essence. Next, we'll discuss why you must relearn to use your energy consciously, choosing where it goes, where it stays, and where it should never be wasted. It's time to learn to be selective with your own soul. If you're reclaiming your energy and setting boundaries, you'll find value in my book, Beyond the Shadow. It unpacks Jung's key ideas and gives tools to protect your energy, set boundaries, and reconnect with your true self. The link is in the pinned comment. Understanding this intellectually is useless if you keep saying yes when you mean no. Responding to uncomfortable messages, engaging in empty conversations, or maintaining relationships out of inertia. Awareness without action is just another form of self-deception. True transformation begins when you decide to be selective, and that requires emotional discipline. Conscious unavailability isn't being cold, arrogant, or indifferent. It's no longer being accessible to anyone, anytime, for any reason. It's taking control of your energy, time, and peace. Start with small actions. Don't respond immediately. Breathe before reacting. Step out of arguments before being dragged into chaos. Turn off your phone without guilt. Say no. Say you're not interested. Say you won't engage. Most importantly, you don't need to justify your absence or explain your silence. You owe nothing to anyone except yourself. For many, this is unforgivable because refusing to explain takes away their power to keep you in an emotional narrative where you're always the helpful, understanding, accessible one. Jung understood that individuation involves isolation, not depressive isolation, but sacred isolation, a time of inner retreat where you relearn to hear your own voice without the world's interference, rebuilding your identity from your own center. A good measure of your growth is noticing who pulls away when you become more reserved, who provokes you when you stop reacting, who accuses you of changing when you start protecting yourself. These aren't signs you're wrong. They're proof you're breaking free. Conscious unavailability feels uncomfortable at first. You'll feel guilty, think you're selfish, or hear you're too harsh. That's part of deconstructing a lifetime of conditioning to put yourself second. Change causes discomfort, not just in you, but in those who benefited from your old self. Unavailability is the foundation of self-determination. Saying no to the world is saying yes to yourself. Walking away from toxic environments reaffirms your peace is worth more than false connections. When you stop explaining, you start being respected, even if by few. Not everyone is ready for this presence because your emotional absence exposes wounds they don't want to face. It reveals how much they relied on your emotional chaos to feel in control. That's when the rupture happens, bringing pain, loneliness, and the feeling of loss. When really you're just freeing yourself. What comes after the distance? What's born from silence? In the final part, we'll explore the rebirth that only happens when you have the courage to be misunderstood, to stand alone, and to become whole for yourself. It's time to understand why the solitude of the strong is the path to true freedom. When you stop being available to everyone, something profound begins. First comes silence, an uncomfortable silence that feels like it's screaming inside you. You wonder if you did the right thing, if you're too harsh, if you're losing people who cared. But gradually that silence transforms. It cleanses, calms, heals. Then comes solitude, not the solitude of absence, but of total presence, your own. The solitude of the strong, of those who no longer betray themselves to keep others close. In that space where there was once confusion, clarity enters. Where there was anxiety, peace arrives. Where there was need, a new strength emerges, the strength of being whole within yourself. Jung said individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires distancing from the collective, shedding the mask, walking alone for a while. That's what you're doing when you become unavailable. You're not fleeing the world. You're returning to yourself. In this moment, you stop being a reactor and become a creator. You stop being shaped by circumstances and start shaping your reality from within. Those uncomfortable with your absence reveal they never wanted you, just the role you played. Now that you no longer fit, they don't know what to do with you. And that's liberating. You'll lose people, but find yourself. You'll leave places, but reconnect with your essence. You'll be misunderstood, but finally respected. Because when you're no longer available for everything, you become valuable, rare, unforgettable. This is a rebirth, a new beginning, a life where you no longer settle for emotional crumbs, mind games, or emptiness disguised as affection. You only accept what resonates with your peace, truth, and wholeness. If you've reached this point, part of you is ready for this path. Part of you understands that being loved means nothing if it costs abandoning yourself. True self-love begins when you choose yourself, even if it means being alone for a while. If you've come this far, something inside you is already changing. You're more aware, steadier, closer to becoming whole. That's why I invite you to keep going. The next video dives deeper into this journey of reconnecting with your inner power. But don't stop now. This journey doesn't end here. Click and continue. In the silence between videos, the awakening completes. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.